Well, good morning. It is 10 o'clock on April 26th. So this is the day for our community dialogues. And so I want to welcome everyone today. First, I'd like to start off with a thank you to Kaiser Permanente for their support of this year's community dialogue series. So thank you very much to Kaiser. And just a little bit of background for today. Today, April is Autism Acceptance Month, and so we're going to have some conversations around some of the resources that are available to individuals, families, and employers within the Henry County community, and address some of those, but also just talk about kind of where we've come, where we're going, what we need to do as a community to be more accepting across the board when we talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so today, I'm very excited. We've got a diverse panel to join us today. And let's see, is Lori available? Lori, good morning. Lori Harris from Pageant School. Welcome this morning. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about the school, please?
Sure. So I'm the executive director at Our World at Hope Park. We were formed in, I think, September of 2011. We are dedicated to the well-being and advancement of the special needs community in the Southern Crescent area. Our most crucial program is Our World School. It's a school for children with special needs and learning disabilities, and it's in McDonough off of 42. This is our fourth year that we've been in existence. We often joke that we are the best kept secret in Henry County because everybody's like, I didn't know you were doing this. So we are there. We currently have 35 students. A ratio of our guideline is 7 kids to a teacher and a para, although several of our classes are smaller than that, depending on their need. We are accredited for kindergarten through 12th grade. And our overall mission will be to eventually have early intervention, which is very important when we have kids with autism, and a workforce development program. And we're very excited that our workforce development program, we're going to be starting on late May, early June. So we're very, very excited about being able to graduate our kids to a job and not to the couch.
That is wonderful. That is a huge lift, but it's definitely one that's needed. So I am so excited that you're able to join us today for this conversation, because if we can help share that secret, we are more than happy to do that. Definitely a great need within the community. So congratulations on 4 years. It's exciting to have you on board. Real quick, we can get into this a little bit more later, but I know you've got a couple of events coming up. Would you like to talk a little bit about each of those?
Sure, thank you for that. So we have to, for every child that we take in, we take them in at a loss. The cost of tuition is great for our parents, but it's not enough to cover all of our programs that we run. So we do a lot of fundraising. So we are doing a baseball challenge. So between April 20th and May 20th, we have 12 people who are battling it out together, community leaders that are battling it out, trying to become the MVP of the game. And then it'll culminate on May 22nd. And our baseball team, we have 2 baseball teams. We play with Henry County Parks and Rec, and they're amazing. So we have our honey badgers, and our honey badgers are going to come and play with these community leaders, a game of baseball. And then we also have our cheerleaders, which people think it's funny that we have baseball cheerleaders, but we don't have a football team. So our honey badgers cheerleaders will be there to cheer on everybody. And so that is May 22nd. We also have our walkathon, or so it's a walk a mile in our shoes, where guys are challenged to come out and walk just a little over a mile around McDonough Square in high heels. It works just like a regular walkathon. They come in and they get pledges for people, and then they come out and walk and they turn the money in. This year, however, we do have baseball, or we have challenge cards that people can buy and present to a specific walker. So it may be that you have to take your child to OT, and so part of the walk would be doing all these little obstacle courses on the way. Super Mom Challenge is, you have to push a baby stroller, you have to have a baby in your arm, a cell phone, a diaper bag, just different things like that. And so you have to walk through that. And then there are a couple other ones that are challenges that should add to the delight of the people who are watching. Maybe not so much to the people who are walking, but everything should be a lot of fun. And then, of course, in September, we have our special needs pageant that we have every year. And that also serves as a fundraiser, but that money goes to our scholarship program.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And we'll definitely, I know that we've got the baseball out on our social media. I'm not sure if we have the walk a mile in her shoes yet, but I'm sure that'll be going up live as well. So if anybody's looking for that information, they can visit your website or our social media, and we'll be sure to update that. Absolutely. And then from Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency this morning, we have two guests. So let me start with Paul Workman. Paul, are you available?
Yes, I am. Let me get my video started here.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Paul. Tell us a little bit about what your role is at GVRA.
Sure. So I am the Employment Relations Coordinator for Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency. And what I do is I work on a statewide basis to develop employment opportunities throughout the state. I also consult with our team of employment specialists on their job development and placement efforts for the persons with disabilities that we serve. So I know part of the topic was, discussing, how we work with persons with developmental disabilities, and our team, as a whole, we work with the general population. So, not only persons with developmental disabilities, but persons with all types of disabilities. So, our main focus, it's two fronts. We really work with two customers. We work with our job seekers with disabilities, and then we work with our businesses in our local communities to provide services. And the services we provide to businesses help them to with their diversity and inclusion processes, with being able to bring on persons with disabilities, and the more services we can provide, the better. The more interaction we can have with businesses, the better. I think it's better to develop those partnerships early on and put these, some of these services in place. One of our main services is job placement, and essentially, what we do there is we work with our customers to understand, what their strengths are, what their skills and abilities are. And then we work on finding a good fit for them. So our outreach consists of reaching out to businesses that can meet the needs of our customers, but also businesses, reach out to us for different services that they may need. So it's kind of a two-front approach. And from there, we kind of assess, what that employer needs. And then, we're able to provide those services tailored to that employer.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we'll have a couple of questions around that in a little bit, but I appreciate the update. And Sharon DeMille is also with GVRA. Good morning, Sharon.
Good morning. As he said, I'm Sharon DeMille. I'm the Strategic Initiatives Coordinator, which that umbrella is over behavioral health issues, developmental disabilities, as well as all types of supported employment, which is really a good fit between the two, because a lot of times in those areas of disability, we turn to support employment. We have three types. We have two types that really would apply here with developmental disability. We have traditional support employment, where someone is getting some assistance, getting going on a job, some supports on and off the job. But it requires a lot of close work with the employer, with our counselors and the employer and with the provider. And we also have customized support employment, which is very frequently used with developmental disabilities and typically involves creating a position maybe out of existing work with an employer. Customized by its very philosophy encourages a close relationship with employers to identify their needs and how the person we're working with can enhance their business, help with their needs. It's sort of a mutual win-win situation, again, with a lot of the supports and services we can provide to help a business and a person both be successful in this venture.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. I think what I heard from all of you is there is an individualized approach to this. I mean, a lot of times once we get into this, when we start looking at transitions and that, we do have to look individually. It's not as cookie cutter as one might think. And that I think is sometimes the struggle as we look at matching up a student and his or her individual career plans and what their hopes and aspirations are with what might be realistic and what might be available. So Lori, what does the transition approach look like for you in the school as you look at this workforce development role and getting these as you say, these individuals off the couch and into the world of work?
So we don't have a lot, we do have a lot of teenagers, but we're just bringing in this program, the workforce development program. But one of the other programs that we actually have at our school and brought in, it's a proprietary program. It's called Developmental Visual Learning. And so we will be working with these kids along their natural neurological hierarchies to fill in the spots they're missing, and also teaching them how to learn eidetically, so visually, rather than sequentially by memorizing everything. And, you know, because when you memorize stuff, it's going away. If you see the picture in your mind, it's there and you can recall a lot more details. So one of the things that we'll be doing as we're going through this is actually building visual, what we call IMAPs. So they're visual maps that start at 12 o'clock with images, and we teach them the image with a movement and a sound, because then they get all three of the neurological hierarchies: movement, touch, auditory, verbal, and then visual. And it happens to help them remember it a lot better. So we can actually go through those processes with the IMAPs. You know, how do you put together a resume? You know, all of the soft skills that I call them essential skills. Most people call them soft skills. So we're going to be putting all of that together. But then as we transition them to a employer, we will actually be able to sit down with the employer and create these visual maps for them so that they know how to do their job when they go in, and it's not a sequential approach.
Yeah. I appreciate that. You know, I think what I've heard is this is, you know, we're not putting a bow on something, dropping it off at the employer's place of business and walking away. I think all three of you at each time have said how this is a relationship, it's a partnership, you're working with those employers. So, you know, for Paul and Sharon, what does that look like from GVRA and your role with the employers? How do you individualize that or work one-on-one with the employers to make sure that it's supportive?
So really it's about building trust with the employers, you know. Like I said earlier, it's really kind of looking at their individual needs and putting, you know, our services in place to assist those employers. So I think, you know, one of the best things we could do is, you know, really get to know what the culture is for an employer, what the work environment is for an employer, and just kind of explain, you know, to them that, you know, we're not there to enforce anything. You know, we're there as supports, you know, we're there as consultants. We're looking at how we can assist you to bring persons with disabilities on and for the both of you to be successful, you know, for you to find a good employee and then for our customer, you know, to be able to grow within their job. You know, so that's kind of what we're looking to do. And one of the services we can provide is diversity and inclusion training. And this helps a lot. You know, this is where, you know, our employment specialists can go in and do a presentation, you know, kind of explain, you know, what it is to have a disability, you know, what are the different types of disabilities. And, you know, basically it's an open dialogue, you know, with a team. It could be a team of managers. It could be, you know, boots on the ground staff, you know, but just kind of discussing, you know, biases and misperceptions that create barriers for persons with disabilities. And then, you know, just a non-judgmental environment where we can have that open dialogue.
Thank you. You know, it reminds me that this is the one type of disability that no matter where we start, with the switch, any of us could fall into this category.
Right.
Within intellectual and that type of ability in that. And so it is key that we have that understanding. I think a lot of times the fear that we have to work to overcome within the employer community is that there is support out there, that in so many ways, this is not you on your own. So can you talk about if we bring, if I bring in an employee and you've worked with me to individualize that plan for that job for him or her, and we're still working through some of the miscommunications, misunderstandings, and that. What are some of those next steps? I'm assuming you come back out and you'll help us work through it again, that we're not all on our own. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're definitely correct there. We provide employment follow-up, and that looks a little different. And Sharon can talk about the more tailored approach to what she does. But with our team, when an employment specialist places someone with a business partner, we track that person, we track that success for at least the first 90 days, and that's at least the first 90 days. So basically what that involves is the employment specialist, regularly checking with their business contact, regularly checking with our customer, seeing how things are going, seeing if there needs to be any additional supports put in place. Those additional supports could be a job coach, to help the person additionally learn the job a little bit more. It could be bringing in our assistive work technology team, which they would go out and do an assessment of the work site to see if there's a reasonable accommodation that could be put in place and make that recommendation to the employer. And generally, reasonable accommodations, most of them are under $500. So I know sometimes that is a concern of the employer, but generally they don't cost a lot of money, to put into place.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I appreciate you both, all of you here today, because I think that there is such a fear of where me as an employer, what I need to do, how I need to stay on top of it. And so the fact that you all are here as resources to help them, I think is key. Sharon, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say the support employment is almost like drilling it down to the next level. And it's a team made up of the individual, GVRA, a provider, a support employment provider, and the employer. And with support employment of both types, some front work is done where we determine what type of supports will make this person successful. Those are things that are talked out ahead of time. When they go out and look for work, we call it job development and traditional, because you're not just going wherever you see a help wanted sign. You are going out and talking to employers, you're developing positions, you're finding that right match for both. And with customized, it takes it even another level, because you're typically looking for an area. Maybe you go to a business, okay, what's your greatest need? How can we fill it? It might mean creating something out of pieces you already have there. The old term for it sometimes was job carving. Okay, here's a task this group is doing that is, you're finding it inefficient for your business, but if we had our person doing it, and as Paul said, accommodations sometimes are free or very low cost. And our goal, of course, is to, if a job is customized correctly, sometimes just the aspects of the job take care of whatever the accommodations would have been. And they do have, part of support employment does build in a job coach. It's someone that can come in there and help them with whatever. If it might be the culture of the area. Okay, here's where you go to break. Here's where you check in. It might be just, let's just go over the task a few days and get the hang of it. But it's also things outside of the job. Here's what happens when you have a flat tire. Here's how you call, tell them you're going to be late. Here's what you do. Here's how you resolve these stresses. And working, and support employment is supposed to be for the life of a job. So employers can be confident that there will be a level of support. We hope in time the person becomes such an integral part of his or her employment that that's a minimal need, but it's there. It is someone to turn to if suddenly you bring in new machinery, for example, and they're going to need to learn new machinery. You can still reach out and say, hey, we just changed everything up. Can you help us? And we're there to do that. Us and the provider. We do use providers to help us with support employment.
Sharon, you raised a thought that I'd had, and in my research over the years in workforce development, especially those with extraordinary needs that are, where we look at developmental or intellectual disabilities, and that when they come on to the team. I know that we've seen it in factory and warehouse, but anywhere that they've come onto the team, what does that do to the morale within that team and that organization? Have we seen studies are there studies that have addressed that?
In fact, right now I'm going through ACRE training on customized support employment so that I can learn how it's done from the provider's point of view. And they have frequently cited studies that it's uplifting. I mean, when someone comes in, they're happy to be there, happy to work there, and they're contributing. I mean, the examples like I mentioned, sometimes a piece of a job that was maybe inefficient to everyone else is carved out and made for this person. Everybody else is like, well, where have you been all my life?
Yep.
It's been overwhelmingly positive. And if you create the job, if you customize it correctly, the person doesn't stand out. They're not different. They should be able to fit into the culture. No one's asking you to bend all your rules. They want to fit in just like everyone else and just be part of the culture. You've just designed the job so that it helps them to do that naturally.
Yeah. And I've seen too where the morale of the team has improved significantly when they see that that there's happiness within that team. It kind of spreads throughout, that person feels valued, and they start rethinking their perspective on whether or not they're valued, and they see it's just a whole nice ripple effect that goes throughout the organization. Once you've started looking at that diversity, it just is such a great warm feeling that just spreads throughout. And so I think that's another advantage for employers to be looking at some of these opportunities to partner with you all. I think that raises a great question. And as we talked, that we were doing this conversation in April because traditionally April has been Autism Awareness Month. Now this year, the Autism Society, the Autism Associations, and some others have changed that up a bit. And I really am excited and very happy that they're doing this, that they're calling it Autism Acceptance Month. And I think as we look at all the different areas and ways that we start addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion, no matter what that segment of the population is that we have that conversation about, I think that's really what we're all looking for, is that acceptance. We just want some acceptance within that equity game. It's great to have the awareness, but that can only get you so far. That's at some point you have to look at that acceptance and how do you move that needle on acceptance. And so, Lori, what are some of the things that you all at the school and Hope Park are doing to move that needle further from just an awareness perspective to the acceptance? And I know you talked a little bit about the workforce development and some of these other areas, but what are some of the ways that you and your board and your families are trying to help spread that acceptance?
We do a lot of awareness, and of course we've got the school going, but I think how we get acceptance across our lines is by educating the people who we speak with. And so, a lot of people don't understand really what autism is, and the different little things that go with it. And we probably 90% of our kids have autism, but we don't just have autistic kids. We have CP and hydrocephalus and ARC, just a whole gamut of it. But the majority of them are autistic. But I think the biggest thing is just educating everybody, just the public, that this is not something that they need to be afraid of. These are kids that are really smart. Like, so many of them have so much potential inside, and they just don't know how to use their equipment properly. And so as we let them know, hey, this is not a problem really, we just need to get around and help them create these other ways to learn and to process their information. So eidetically instead of sequentially, going back and filling in those neurological hierarchies so that these infantile reflexes that a lot of them have not integrated can be integrated, and then open up the capacity for their processing speed in their brain. And so as we are able to identify what the kids are dealing with and then work with that, and the parents and the people around us, we're getting through education a lot more acceptance in the community.
Yeah, thank you. There's one of the chats that has come up is I think often employers and general public too can be are just afraid of the unknown, and so this support and this this awareness creates that acceptance. So thank you, Paul. From the GVRA's perspective, how are you working on that acceptance? You know, I know the one-on-one conversations with the employers, but are there some other things that you all are doing?
Well, I think, you know, the main thing is outreach. And like I said, it's more tailored to our customers, you know, what their needs are, what their employment goals are. And that's how we do our outreach. And once we, you know, reach out to the business, it's just having that open dialogue and discussion because you know, a lot of times, and there may be some businesses on here where VR has reached out to them, you know, and basically that is to have that discussion, you know, just a candid discussion about, you know, where are you at in diversity and inclusion? You know, are you just starting? You know, do you have any concerns that we can address? You know, what can we do to help with that? You know, what can we put in place? And I mean, we do have programs where, you know, one of the services I think is great. Well, I'll talk about two different services that I think are great to businesses in addition to what we do. One is a job analysis, which, you know, basically is going in and looking at the job as a whole, seeing what specific tasks are needed in order to actually perform that job. So, you know, what is going to be needed to satisfactorily perform that job from the customers that we serve. And so, you know, having that upfront analysis, having our specialists do that, it helps them to understand what it takes in order to perform the job. And then it allows us to put supports in place up front instead of on the back end of that. So if we understand, you know, what's needed to do the job and what supports we can provide beforehand, we're going to have a lot more success moving forward. Another thing that we do, which is very helpful to businesses, is we provide accessibility surveys. These accessibility surveys is where our employment specialists go into the work site and do an evaluation. The ADA has a checklist based on, you know, what a building, you know, what accessibility looks like for a particular, you know, facility. And so they go through and they do like a survey of the building. They write a report, they provide that report to the business. It's like I said before, we're not enforcers of the ADA. It's only recommendations. So, you know, it's a detailed report because the ADA has a lot of, you know, stipulations on what makes a building accessible. But in the end, that helps a business because, you know, not only does it help them for, you know, when they hire persons with disabilities, but when they have customers with disabilities coming in, you know, their facility, their business is open to those persons with disabilities. So, you know, they're going to bring in more business from the disabled population.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Thank you. Sharon, any thoughts on that acceptance and creating that area within your role with GVRA?
I mean, we really believe that, you know, this is an employment first state and that the first and preferred option for anyone is employment. And for example, with the customized support employment, it's a little different than the other types. It begins with a discovery component where you are discovering, I mean, this takes hours, it takes weeks. It's not a quick process. You're discovering all of the ways that person can contribute, and you're discovering it on their turf, on their time, among their activities, their friends, and you get a very good understanding. And then when you're talking to employers and talking about their contributions, you really know them. It's not an overnight process. You've gotten to know them. I mean, if discovery is done well, and it's the ACRE training I mentioned, you have to be a trained person in order to do discovery. It will take as much as 30 hours over a period of 2 months because we all need time to get to know someone. But it's really pulling out what are all those positives? What are all the things this person can do? And then now let's match that up. Let's let's help dispel the concerns in the community by sorry, I think somebody's yeah, but let's help dispel the concerns of the community by saying, let's focus on the positives. Here's all the things they can do. And yes, we've spent, 35 hours with them. We really have had an opportunity to get to know them at their best, on their, like I said, on their turf, go to their home, go with them in the neighborhood to places they enjoy, see what their activities are. That always puts somebody more at ease. You're not bringing them into an office and running a battery of tests. You're going to them and getting a feel for them so that when you're really working with them, you know this person.
Yeah. And I would assume that with that background now, with that knowledge, that helps with the on-the-job portion of it as you transition them into the employment realm, that you know their strengths, you know where they're coming from, and so you know some of those positive reinforcements and things that do work to encourage that growth in that. So I think that that's obviously going to be a win-win for the both the employee and the employer. Let's talk a little bit about some of the industries that you've worked with that have benefited from this process, or it could benefit from the process. And we can talk as simple as the industries such as some of the manufacturing, logistics, hospitality. What are some of those areas that you've all had experience in that you've seen some great successes?
I've seen, a lot of success in the manufacturing area. I'm not sure if you all have heard of Randy Lewis, the VP from Walgreens, who, in their distribution center, they hired a large number of persons with disabilities. And, he shares his story, now he's more of an advocate, and he goes around and talks about, what he put into place because he had a son with a developmental disability and, wanted to open up employment opportunities for, the population. So he put a lot of work into it. And we kind of followed that path. We have a lot of distribution centers that we work with, and a lot of companies are very open to working with persons with disabilities. And I think in the space of, manufacturing, they're kind of pliable. They're able to kind of adjust and work with us depending on, the circumstances of the job. So we've had a lot of success there. We've had a lot of success with CVS. We've worked with CVS a lot within their stores. When a company has a really good process of diversity and inclusion, a lot of times that starts with their diversity and inclusion managers and how they do their outreach. And they, have a really strong relationship with, CVS, and they have a process to work with us. They consider our candidates, firsthand, and then we work with, I've worked really closely with Advanced Auto Parts and their distribution center and stores throughout Georgia. And we meet every week to discuss our process. So have a very close relationship with them. And I really value that because, when we come to the table to have those discussions on how we're moving forward, they bring everyone to their table. They bring their district managers, they bring their diversity inclusion manager, and we just have discussions every week as far as, how we're moving along and what progress we're making and how we can improve. And I just love that because, when you have that type of relationship, you're going to have success in what, and how you're working together and partnering.
Well, and I appreciate that, Paul, because I think, that's a win for you as well. I
Right.
appreciate hearing the continuous improvement aspect of it,
Right.
as opposed to, this is what we started doing 10, 15 years ago, and we're still doing the same thing. And
Right.
finding new ways to make this even better. That's great. What are some of the other areas? I know food service and hospitality, we see that a lot. There are ways there that we can work with the employer to create, something that works for both this individual as well as with them.
Yeah, so we partnered with Sodexo, and we have a really great relationship with them. You know, they're a huge company. You know, they provide food services to university systems and just different, you know, hospitals or other organizations. And so, you know, we partnered with them. They have a special process. They have a link that our candidates can apply through to track and follow up. And you know, they're highly inclusive. They work with us on specifics. You know, if we have a person with a certain type of disability, you know, we discuss accommodations and, you know, the needs of that individual up front, you know, and so we've had a really good relationship with them as well. And you know, there's not really specific paths that we're looking at, you know, as far as for our customers. Like I said, it's more tailored to what their interests and needs are. So, you know, and it could be a one-on-one development. A lot of what we see is our employment specialists are reaching out to smaller companies and developing really good relationships with those companies, whether it be, you know, a mom and pop restaurant, you know. So, you know, we found success there as well. So, you know, anywhere from your, you know, small to mid to large size companies, it's a different approach, of course, you know, and you're dealing with different people. But I think the more we, you know, have that outreach and have those discussions, you know, the more success we see as we move forward.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think so. I think really, it doesn't matter. Any business can
Right.
reach out to y'all,
Yeah.
and you together, you guys will determine whether or not there's a good opportunity there.
Oh, definitely. And we'll work, you know, we'll work with the business. You know, we may have the candidates, but sometimes we may not. And, you know, if we don't, that's fine. We have community partners that we work with. You know, our community partners are Department of Labor, DBHDD. You know, we have various partners that we work with, and that's the other support that we have there is, you know, being able to work together with them and partner with them and decide how our services are going to work together to support the customers that we work with.
You know, and I guess too, just one last question for you, Paul, is this is a great opportunity for a lot of our employers that are out there, because what I've heard over the last several months, and I'm sure you all have heard it as well, but even the labor commissioner spoke to us a month ago about the fact that unemployment is back down to almost within where we were before the pandemic, but we still have businesses looking to fill jobs. And so many, you know, not all of them, but many of these jobs that are out there, they might benefit, that employer might benefit from reaching out to you to see how they can create a plan to incorporate an individual with disabilities to take on that role and get that position filled.
Definitely. You know, persons with disabilities are an untapped talent pool, you know. And,
absolutely.
And the thing is, you know, these are persons wanting a job. I know, you know, I've heard different stories, you know, with unemployment insurance being what it is and persons not wanting to return back to work, you know, extended unemployment, you know, and people getting, you know, additional checks and things of that nature. But we have persons who really want to work.
Absolutely.
You know, and they want to prove themselves. They want to get in and do a good job. And so it's a really good population to tap into. And so, you know, that's one of the things when we have discussions with employers, you know, we discuss that, you know, we discuss how we can assist them. We discuss all our services. And, you know, we really want to find a good fit for the employer. So it's really about learning about them and what kind of jobs they have and, you know, their needs. And we want to meet their needs as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Lori, question for you. As we bring it back a bit to the autism aspect of that, and the numbers, you know, for whatever reason, we could spend a whole nother hour on this, but the numbers of diagnosed individuals along the spectrum is increasing. I think it was around 125 or so per unit of population before, and now it's about half that, I think is what they're saying, is somewhere around 52 or so. I think it's per what, 100,000 that are on the spectrum. Is that about the statistic that you have?
So I have a couple of different statistics. You got 1 in 54. Autism Speaks has 1 in 59 on their website, which I think is not accurate because it was 1 in 59 a few years ago, and it particularly grows at the rate of 15 to 17% per year. I did see a report recently that said it was like 1 in 46 now, as of like 2018, which is 3 years ago. You can play with the math and make statistics say anything you want, but if you follow that math through, 2028, 2030, you're looking at half of your population, 1 to 2, having something on the autism spectrum. And so you want to talk about acceptance. When you get 1 out of every 50 people is autistic, or 1 out of 20, or heaven forbid, 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 2, you're going to have to start accepting that as a reality really fast. Right. And the interesting thing is, a lot of them now are hitting the workplace, like some crazy number are actually starting to go into the workplace. And they can, a lot of autistic people have a lot of different talents. They just have to be able to get that information out. Even the nonverbal kids that we deal with certainly have receptive abilities. They can hear and understand what we're telling them. They just can't get that image out efferently. And so, acceptance is going to happen, because I don't know who your firefighters are, or your police officers, or your doctors, or your computer science people, or anybody, like your small businesses, unless we help these kids and adults at this point get out there and get jobs. It's going to be crazy. So we spend a lot of time, as I mentioned before, remediating these kids so that when they go out, we're not dealing with the behaviors that a lot of people worry about. When a child is sitting there and they're rocking because they're trying to localize themselves, or they're flapping because they're stimulating their periphery so they can avoid their central field, which is why they ignore their verbal cues, because it goes through Broca's area of communication in their brain. If they don't understand why these people are doing that, or if we can't help these kids find ways to remediate that maladaptation, actually, then we've got a big problem on our hands. Big problem on our hands, and people don't get it yet.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, we'll do a series of this next month or next year. We'll do all 30 days, but we also have the societal issues that we have to address, and the first responder issues that we have to address when they confront one of these individuals, and they don't have the experience, they don't have the training, they don't have the knowledge of how do you communicate with a person on the spectrum. It's a societal issue as well that we need to be addressing. But for the sake of the last 15 minutes or so, I'm gonna keep us focused a bit on the employment side, and we can address some of these others as we move forward in the year ahead. Sharon, I don't know if this is a question for you or Paul, or maybe it's something that I need to come back with later, but are there resources, whether through COVID CARES Act and things like this, WIOA, are there some financial resources out there that can support businesses, employers, as they look at developing some of these transitional opportunities for individuals, or even from a workforce development perspective, as we've got individuals that are aging out of the educational system into the transitional system and then age out of that? Do we have resources out there financially, or do we need to address that with our elected officials to say, listen, this is an issue?
There are tax credits available. I'm sure Paul can address that too, for hiring. And the support employment is a resource that is funded under GVRA, bringing in a job coach, helping. And I wanted to comment about the autism too, that I would never use always and never, because a spectrum is just that alone spectrum. But when sometimes an issue is change, one of the good fits for support employment is that they're adapting and learning in the real place where they will really work, and you're avoiding that moment of change. I mean, you can set up somewhere else for a long time. Okay, we're preparing you for this job, but then bring them in and now you adjust. It's just a perfect fit. You place and train, you're there. Sometimes, as Paul pointed out too, the accommodations are minimal or no cost. There are things in place on the side of the person, like we customize. There are times when they can, if there's a specialized piece of equipment or something, they can go into past plans that will help afford that for them, which then takes that burden from the business. There are different things like that, and Paul may have something to add.
Yeah, so a lot of what we can do is, we could set up job shadowing with companies. We could set up work-based learning for our students. We have what we call on-the-job training, where if an employer is to hire one of our customers, we could pay for half, we could reimburse the employer for half of what they're paying that individual for a certain amount of time. So it kind of takes out the risk of that hire, and the employer's benefiting financially from that. And it gives them an opportunity, just to kind of be able to train that person, and then we can still provide additional supports for that individual. So, and then like Sharon mentioned, there are work opportunity tax credits. So if employer hires someone in the population of a person with a disability, they can apply for tax credits and receive those. So there's a lot of incentives out there, and there's a lot of programs. And then also in partnering with our different workforce partners, we could definitely add additional services to that, and whatever type of supports that business is going to need. So we definitely can get that in place.
Thank you all. I think that's the key, is that I'm fortunate enough to spend an hour with the three of you and talk about this, but I know that we all have so many more community partners that are out there that would benefit, or the employer as well as the individual would benefit from creating those relationships. So I know that there are many more out there that we all work with. But thank you all for your time. Thank you for your knowledge. I do want the employers to be aware that there are resources out there for them, not just the great minds that are on the team on the call with me today, but also some financial resources and some tax resources in that. And so a lot of times, have that question up front if you're working with Paul or Sharon or Lori, because you don't want to get down that path and realize that there was paperwork you needed to do back when you started, and now you're out of the whole sequencing and that. And so it's very important. As we wrap up, if there are any questions, please feel free. I apologize. I hope that you all know how this operates, but if there's any questions, go ahead and drop them in Facebook Live or in the chat and Q&A, and I know that we'll wrap that up at the end if there's questions. But while we do the wrap up with my three great panelists today, I'm going to start with you, Lori. Tell me anything that we didn't get to say that you wanted to share, but also what's the best way to contact you? Is it email, phone, website? But I'm going to ask all three of you for that, so that we can, so if people do have more questions, or they do want to work with you, get involved some way, they have the easiest way to reach out to you. So Lori, we'll start with you.
Okay, so you can email me at Lori, Lori, at ourhopepark.com. Or probably the easiest way to reach me is by text or phone. And so my personal cell phone number is 231-360-3469. If you text me, please identify yourself so that I know who I'm talking to. Yeah. Other than that, I do answer my phone unless I'm in a meeting or with a parent or a child. And I do respond. Sometimes emails get backed up, but I'm happy to answer any questions I can help you with.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Paul, easiest, best way to get a hold of you?
Oh yeah, I just want to add that, I'm readily available looking forward to businesses reaching out to me and, you know, having those discussions of how we can work together and partner. The best way to reach me, you could reach me by email or my work cell. My email is paul.workman@gvs.ga.gov. And my work cell is 706-969-1977.
Wonderful. Thank you. Sharon, I see that you did go ahead and put yours into the chat. So thank you, because we will get everybody's out there in the chat. But is there
And
anything
I wanted to throw out that any day but today on the phone number, I'm in between telephones. They've taken my phone. They're going to give me a new one. But I either way that it's easier to contact, because I can follow up in the field with any of the counselors working with like support employment, and it's certainly what we call the specialty caseloads of developmental disabilities and behavioral health.
Yeah. Well, you know, thank you all for your intelligence, your dedication to this, bringing that awareness, but also that acceptance. My hats are off to you. I've been involved in workforce development for a couple of decades now from the chamber side, and I know the struggles that both you and the employers are up against from time to time, and just kind of sometimes it just feels like you're running in circles. And so thank you all. I appreciate your time. I want to honor and be respectful of that hour we asked for. If there is anything that we can do at the chamber to help you all get the information out, by all means, please continue to keep us in the loop, and we'll be happy to share that information. And then let's see, it looks like phone numbers and emails are coming through. So thank you, Gary and Paul and Sharon and Lori. Thank you. I think Paul and Sharon, I'm going to follow up with you offline at the end of this with a comment that came through that if you haven't seen it, I just want to make sure that you've seen it. But otherwise, I don't see any other questions in that coming through other than, you know, thank you for the contact information. So I'm going to let you all go. Lori, I hope to see you at the ball game and at the McDonough Square. Paul and Sharon, if there is anything we can do for you all, please let me know, because this is a huge passion of mine, and I'm more than happy to get this information out to the individuals. So thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Have a great week. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Gary, are we still live? Gary?
Yes, we are.
We are, okay. Paul, did you get a chance? Did you see the comment in the chat?
I did, and I was gonna reach out to her. I think she provided her email.
I asked her for that. Yeah, it's in there. What I can do is I can email this to you. I'll email the chat to you, so you've got the info.
Awesome.
I figured it was too much for us to handle on the call, so I didn't want to bring that up then. But she did give her email, so I'm going to send that off to you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I definitely, and I will follow up with her.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.